On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Jen Heller to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Heller's story is how to rebrand before, during, and after a stroke. After 14 years working in her hometown, Jen felt change was needed. She made a bold move to Madison, lost 125 pounds, and started her own business. 1 year after the move, Jen suffered a mild stroke at age 32. Ignoring symptoms at first, she finally trusted her gut and sought out medical attention. Now, with better health and her business thriving, Jen shares her story to inspire others who rebrand. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up wherever you are or whatever you happen to be doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast on Facebook at Survive and Thrive 8791. The podcast, or you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm in it for the likes and the follows at tdecora8791, as well as hitting me up on Facebook, personal, Tim Decora. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or like button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to tell their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. I'm glad you could join us today. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning, featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, divorce, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. Today, my guest is Jen Heller, and I'm going to introduce her in a little bit here. But we always have to drop in some stuff from the internet, the World Wide Web, information superhighway. According to the internet, and the internet is always right, correct, Jen?
Always.
Always. Unless you're in my house. I don't need the internet or Google. I've got my wife, and she's always right.
Perfect.
In the United States, 1 in 5 women will have a stroke. About 55,000 more women than men experience a stroke each year. Stroke is the leading cause of death for women. And that is one reason why we have Jen here to talk about the mild stroke that she went through a few years ago. So today, I welcome Jen Heller to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Raised in northern Wisconsin, Jen graduated from Rhinelander High School and is a proud hodag. After high school, Jen would take her talents into the work world as an administrative assistant at a nursing home before landing a job with Coca-Cola for 14 years. After a few years, she stated on her website that her job became mundane. She was significantly overweight and needed to make a change. Heller educated herself on nutrition and detoxification, lost an astronomical 125 pounds, moved to the Madison area, started her own business, Generate Wellness with a J. And just a year after arriving in Madison, she would have a mild stroke, and that's why she's here today. Despite that mild stroke, she has been thriving ever since. Today, I'm so glad you could join us, Jen Heller. What is up?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
What the heck is a hodag? I know what a hodag is, but
Everybody wants to know. I don't even know. It's just, I think if you look it up on the internet or if you look it up in the books, I think it says a mythical creature that was created. I don't even know the date or the year. I think it's actually tied to, I think I have somebody in my family, somewhere generationally, I think that was actually involved in that, but it's just a mythical creature that became the town mascot. And I think 1 or 2 years ago, it actually won a national award for being like the coolest mascot, or voted the coolest mascot. But, has horns, spikes, it's green, looks interesting.
There's a bunch of really cool ones. Hodags is one of them. Mm-hmm. And then the Nimrods from
Michigan, right?
Waters Meat, Michigan, the Hodags, and you got the Hurley Midgets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
like what a sense of humor up north people have.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was a sense of humor, but there was some kind of, it meant something.
Yeah.
And get rolling here. You're a basketball fan, and you talked about the Badger basketball team. So
Yeah.
it is the March Madness.
Yes.
What do you know about March Madness?
I don't know a ton. I'm going to be totally honest. That's usually my husband's wheelhouse. I just enjoy watching them. I just think it's thoroughly entertaining and inspiring. I enjoy going to the games. Actually, I had never been to an actual Badger game live until I moved to the Madison area. Went to a few basketball games, some hockey games, and just kind of fell in love with the energy and the fire of being in and around the sports and the camaraderie of it. So I don't know a ton about statistics, so don't ask me any of that.
Don't ask you how many points you scored in your 7th grade season.
No,
or 8th
I did
grade
play
season.
basketball in middle school and in high school, but I switched to volleyball and softball and enjoyed that more.
Madison is a college town. You go to Milwaukee, that is more a pro town. So yeah, sports and the Badgers, football and basketball seem to hog up a lot of people's times. With spring just around the corner, how did you spend your winter season? This is a part of a little plug here for you.
What did I do? I sold saunas. That's what I do. Winter is sauna season. Anybody who knows me as Jen the sauna lady, generate the sauna business.
I know a girl. If you're looking for a sauna, I know a girl,
Yeah.
not I know a guy.
I spend the winter. People to sink into. I mean, just in all seriousness, when the winter comes or when fall comes and kids go back to school, people kind of sink back into as the seasons flow. Our minds go back into a bit more organization, structure, schedules, and people dial back inward into their fitness and their health and well-being. And in the winter, particularly, I sell saunas all over the country, but people feel in the winter kind of hibernate, so they want to stick inside. So a lot of people are looking, bring these into their home. And so I love the winter season because I get to spend it talking to people about their health and well-being. So that's pretty much what I did. We're kind of coming off of that. Like March, April is where people kind of, spring break is here. Now people want to get back outside. So their mindset shifts a bit, but
And so does yours you need to have a cold tub, probably.
I do. I don't sell cold tubs. I have one. I
Oh.
love it. I have them on my site. I partner with a few cold plunge companies, a couple great ones, but that's a whole other mindset, getting in the cold.
It is. I know. I was just thinking about as you were talking about it being cold, and it hasn't been cold here, I don't think, for a couple of years where it gets really cold. But I remember those times where it's 30 below wind chill and you can hear the wind whipping.
Howling.
Where else would you like to go? Maybe Miami, but instead of Miami, I'm going to go down to my 148 degree sauna.
You got it. Yeah.
And it's a great selling point, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because people, like I said, this kind of goes back into a mindset thing where people want to feel warm and cozy. And for those, like for me particularly with the stroke and the circulation, a lot of people are, when it gets cold, their whole body is bone chilled. And so to get and feel the radiant heat on their body just makes them feel better. And so, yeah, it's a thing. I like the cold too. You'll find me laying in the snowbank, usually after my sauna session in the winter months. I'm a little bit on the edge.
That is crazy.
It's crazy, but I love it.
And you won't get into a cold tub, but you'll go and lay in the snow.
Oh, no, I have a cold tub. I'll get into the cold tub, but if there's snow outside, I'll walk right outside, lay in the snowbank right after my sauna session. Making snow angels.
I might have to try that. Before we get to your story, I need to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Do you cook?
Not a ton. I do enjoy it, but not a ton.
Okay. With their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere, people keep coming back. With locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Wanakee, and Mount Horeb, most communities in the Dane County area can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite places to take my mom when she's here in town.
And do you go to then probably Sun Prairie?
Sun Prairie, yeah.
I would encourage you to hit the Monona one. That's the one that's close by.
Yeah, when we meet with my husband's family, they're in Fitchburg, so we usually meet at the Monona one. Yeah,
that
we've been
is
to
a
both.
beautiful place.
I know, especially if you get to sit outside.
And your favorite food is?
The ahi tuna salad's probably my fave.
ahi tuna salad. I would recommend trying the Bomber's Special Pizza. That's a really good one, and I've been eating that since the mid-'80s. On the podcast, our guests will follow the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like, your history, and what happened to get you on the podcast. And then we take a little intermission. In segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened and then get into what it's like now and discuss Jen's 5 suggestions for thriving. The part where we get into what was it like before. You grew up up north in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and for those people that are not familiar, it is straight. I looked at Google Maps. It is straight north. Yep, straight north. I mean, you fall asleep at the wheel. The worst thing that might happen could be a lane change in some parts there. Just a little over 3 hours straight north of Madison. What was life like growing up in Rhinelander?
Oh, it was fun. It was great. I loved it. Played outside. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where we had, a lot of kids, and my grandparents lived in the same neighborhood, and they had a pool, and it was kind of like the hangout. We played baseball. I mean, we were outside. There was a lake about a half a mile through the woods, so we rode our bikes to the lake all the time.
Half a mile one way, 3/4 of a mile the other way.
Yeah.
Mile and a half south. Yeah, surrounded by lakes up there, right?
It's everywhere. So I'm very open about when people ask me about my childhood. I had a great childhood, and I'm very grateful for that. Spent the majority of my time outside and just had a lot of great friends and enjoyed school. And yeah, the Northwoods is a great place to hang out.
People that you probably know now probably ask you, especially from down here, a lot of people from the South have places, cabins, and I love when people say, yeah, we're going up to the cabin this weekend, and where I taught, people say cabins. They don't have a freaking cabin. They have like a 4,000 square foot house. It's a house.
It's a house.
Yes,
it's maybe a cabin because it's on water, but it's a house.
Quote, cabin, yeah.
It's funny. I think that's probably one of the most astonishing, interesting things that has happened since I've moved here is whenever I say I'm from Rhinelander, 9 out of 10 people are like, oh, my family's got a cabin on Lake George. We were just at an event last week, and the people wanted to chat with me afterwards. And he said, are you from Rhinelander? Oh, my family, we have a place on this lake. And this, I'm like, everybody, like how many houses could be possibly up there? Everybody has a place up north.
If you're not from if you don't have a place in Rhinelander, you probably have a place in Tomahawk.
Minocqua,
St. Germain.
Eagle River.
Yeah.
The surrounding areas. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's awesome.
Tell our listeners about your own family. You have parents, siblings?
I do, yep. So like I said, grew up north. My dad has passed. He passed in 2018. My mom still lives up north. I have an older brother who lives in Germantown, so not too far from here. And I don't have any children. I have a couple of cats.
Kitty cats.
I've always had animals. When I lived up north, before I moved here, I actually had a farm area, like acreage, and had a couple of dogs. But my family is all still up there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. I really enjoy going there. That's, when you say you get in the car and you just hit the cruise and go 3 hours, like once you get north of 29, it's like you're kind of, for me, I feel like I'm getting close to home, but my entire family still lives up there. So it's a fun place to visit.
And you have a special someone?
My husband.
Yes.
My husband, Mark, he's from Fitchburg area. So he's born and raised in this area. We actually met on a dating app when he was up north on a guy's fishing trip.
Up north.
My stepsister actually put the dating app on my phone and then was managing it for a bit that evening, and I had no idea. And Mark happened to be up north with a couple of guys fishing. And there's normally a radius when you do dating apps. I don't know if you're familiar. I was not.
I'm not.
Okay. I was not either. My sister's 10 years younger than me, so she was all up on it. But Mark was 40. There's normally a 50-mile radius, and Mark was 49.6 miles away from me. So we connected up north and then started dating, did a long-distance relationship for about 6 months. But I was always coming. He came to Rhinelander a few times, but I was always coming down to Madison because there's so much more to do, and there was so many fun things to do. It wasn't but 6 months, and I was pretty checked into moving here.
It's good for all of us and the sauna owners around here.
Yes.
So after high school, you would jump right into the workforce, although you did say that you dabbled in a little 2-year college up there.
I did, yeah. So I've always been eager. We were talking before. I couldn't wait to get to work, actually. I like working. I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. So I've been working since I was 14. So right out of high school, I wanted to work, but I did go to the business school, the business program. Nicolay College has a really great, it was actually geared for working adults. So it was in the evening. It's kind of an accelerated course I did for a few years while I was working at Coca-Cola. So it worked out really well. And then, of course, you just integrate what you learn right into the business world, right into my job.
Coca-Cola, that is a big brand.
One of the biggest, yeah.
What did you do there?
Everything. You wear a lot of hats when you work at a distribution center in a small town. So I was hired on originally for like administrative work to be kind of like the assistant to the administrator, the HR person. A few years in, she left, and I kind of sunk into that role. But we dabbled. I mean, you stepped in when you needed to. We all helped each other and knew each other's roles the best we could. So distribution, mostly it was HR. So like managing, payroll and hiring and, I don't say hiring and firing, but things like that.
I've heard that one.
Hiring and firing, but helping each other. I was really tight with the sales manager. So we worked together. I really enjoyed my job at Coke, actually. I didn't leave because I didn't love it. I left because I aspired to do more. Really.
Yeah, you talked about being the word mundane. That's a big word that maybe started to make that maybe in that pull of somebody in your life now.
Yep.
Talk about that little mundane.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like things just all of a sudden became aware. I had an awareness I just started to feel like I was on a hamster wheel, and it wasn't that I was terribly unhappy but once you start thinking about things, everything just kind of compounded. But the job just felt very mundane is a really good word for it. I started looking at, different, I don't say relationships at that time. I was in a marriage that was quite unfulfilling and just going in two different directions. So I just started looking at everything in my life and knew that I needed to make a change because I could just feel I was kind of crawling out of my own skin. And then you mentioned the weight loss. I mean, that's a whole other piece we can chat about, but I wasn't feeling good in my own body, and I could feel myself slipping downhill mindset wise. And I knew I had to grab myself before it was going in the wrong direction.
And I've heard that saying, you were sick and tired. And I think I saw it on your website. You were sick and tired of being sick and tired, or that little note you sent me. And I've heard that in the recovery world as well. You just wake up and you're sick and you're just
tired
of it.
Yeah.
And I want to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Over the years, I heard that from so many people too, coming into my wellness center. They're just said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, or I'm tired of being tired. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt.
So you lost the 165 pounds and then you decide to move to Madison.
Mm-hmm.
And a year after arriving in Madison, and this is the reason that why we have you here, you've got a lot of layers. Unfortunately, you're like me, and you have a lot of layers. We're like an onion. You keep peeling more things back, and yeah, we could probably talk all day. The reason we have you here is to talk about a stroke, and it was a mild one. You were in the best shape of your life, had a growing business, and you met a guy that you fell in love with. Tell us about the mild stroke. What set off some alarm bells for you?
Well, to be honest, I mean, looking back now, there were definitely some check engine lights and some warning signs that I unfortunately ignored just because I was really busy. Anybody who's ever started or grassrooted a business from the ground up, you're just going full throttle and a lot of things. It's very exciting. It was a very exciting time for me. When I moved to the area, I lost the weight. I got divorced. I kind of hit the reset button. And honestly, it was really exciting because I quit my job. I moved out of my house. I decided to move to Madison, open this business. But anybody who's listening to this and understands the psychology of what those life-changing events can do to the body, I underestimated the level of stress, whether it be good or, exciting or fun or bad or whatever. The level of stress and change that you put on our energetic body being it was too much. It was an overload. I got swept up in that. I didn't realize it. Obviously, I understand it now, hindsight. But at the time, I was just living this thrilling, exciting, I'm going to make all these changes. Unfortunately, if I'm being honest, I was also kind of overshadowing some of the grief and the sadness, because there was grief and sadness. Obviously, it wasn't all easy. Leaving your hometown and your friends and your family is not easy. But the excitement and the thrill of all the other things, I kind of just thought like overshadowed it. The stress was kind of the catalyst for it. But one of the things that I don't think that is probably well documented on my site, because I don't really talk about it a ton, and I didn't actually mention it. When I was 16, there was an explosion. It was in an accident, and I was with my then boyfriend, my high school boyfriend at the time, and it was a massive explosion. In fact, he was killed, and it was a very unfortunate situation, and there was a lot of injury and fatality. And I was the least injured, but I took a massive impact to the right side of my body, which threw me about 12 feet and then onto the ground. What we learned through the stroke and through a lot of testing was that I actually suffered a massive concussion that day, and it went untreated. And because there was so much other issues going on, I was not really treated. So I had this damage on my right side brain that was never really, detected back in the 90s. So fast forward, that was kind of the weakness for when the stress came on and all these other things. And, losing 125 pounds is fantastic, but that's also a stress on the body, right? It's a change. And so it was kind of just this perfect storm of things. It just took me out. I remember walking up the stairs to our bedroom one night, and I just went down. It just was too much. And I again, looking back now, it's not shocking to me. I was tired. I was working too much. I was trying to get the business off the ground. We, of course, I had a new boyfriend then at the time, so we were out having fun and doing things, and just not taking care of my body, not resting, not restoring, not understanding balance. And like I said, that concussion from years ago definitely played a factor in it. But I'm grateful, we talked about statistics. A lot of people don't survive strokes. I didn't realize what was actually going on at the time. When I went down on the ground or on the stairs, I just thought it was massive exhaustion. I just thought I was tired, and I actually just went upstairs and went to bed.
And it's a good thing you're still here today
to
talk about it. Well, there's a couple things that I was just thinking about. I was thinking about episode 47, where I had a friend of mine who went from one job to another because of some things going on, and she didn't realize it either, but her body just decided to shut down kind of for her.
Yeah.
And it sounded like yours did that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many things that you talked about, a massive denial that this is not happening to me. This is not supposed to happen with,
right.
I'm in the best shape of my life.
And 32 years old, best shape of your life. How on earth, the thought didn't even cross my mind. Like I said, the first thing I thought was exhaustion. I call it like the biggest warning shot of my life. It was basically a huge, massive check engine light to slow down and pay attention, because I was going too fast. I was doing too many things.
I love that analogy of the check engine light.
Right.
How many times do we have that come on in our own vehicles, and we just keep pressing on?
Right. It's right there.
Yeah. Because our listeners want to hear how this turns out, and also some of the coping strategies you use to work through this life-changing event, I need to talk about our sponsor before we take a little break. But Buck and Honey's has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning, with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask me why Buck and Honey's. Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honey's does. In 2014, you would have a mild stroke that would change the course of your life in some way, shape, or form. In segment 2, Jen Heller will share how she remained positive despite her mild stroke. Please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We'll be right back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365 and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency crisis services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. The podcast is where I feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Jen Heller was in the best shape of her life, growing a business, met a guy she was in love with, and then she suffered a mild stroke. She's here today to share her story in hopes that her journey will inspire someone like her to survive and thrive. And unfortunately, there are thousands of other women, men and women who suffer strokes. And you're fortunate here to be able to be here today and then, take your mental health and wellness seriously and your physical fitness. So we talked about, you mentioned a little bit earlier when we were going through the what happened, a massive denial. This isn't happening. I'm in the best shape of my life. What was that? You addressed the denial a little bit. What was your mental health like at this particular time?
As I said, the evening that it actually happened, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I kind of just took myself up to the bedroom and laid down and went to sleep because I thought that's what my body needed. And then the next morning I woke up and the whole left side of my body was pretty well paralyzed. Now I could walk, but so kind of imagine like you're just dragging your leg, and I had to pick my arm up from like the elbow or basically the shoulder down. The limb was just kind of dead and my hand was in a fist. So I was really scared. I'm kind of a scrappy person in the sense where I'm just going to keep...
You're from up north. There's a lot of scrappers up there.
I was going to say I was born and raised to be scrappy. So I was like, well, I got to go to work. I've got people coming into the business. I've got to get myself there. So get dressed. And, mentally I was scared. I remember being really scared. I remember sitting on the floor in my closet, pulling my clothes on with one hand, thinking, what the heck is going on? But I just kept doing it. And then when I got to my office, I called my friend who was a chiropractor next door and shared with her what had happened. I thought maybe I had a pinched nerve, like I slept on something wrong.
Slept on something.
Yeah, I thought maybe there was just something skeletally, like maybe I did something because I was also working out, kickboxing, different things. I thought, well, maybe I did something to the nerve, a nerve somewhere. And so I went and saw her, and she kind of confirmed pretty quickly that it wasn't something skeletally, that I needed to check in, make an appointment to go in with the doctor. So interestingly enough, like I said, there was so much going on in my life that I didn't have and I didn't take the time to slow down and like think through what could be happening. I just kept moving and staying in motion, mostly because I was running the business and I just didn't want to draw attention to it. Like the other thing too, and I talk about this now a lot on my show too, because I talk to a lot of other business owners, particularly in the health and wellness space. I was ashamed. I was really ashamed and scared to say something's wrong because I work in the wellness world, the health and wellness space. So how do you raise your hand and say, I'm not well, something's wrong, when people are looking at you to be quote unquote perfect or looking at you to have all the answers. And now all of a sudden something is wrong. I felt really ashamed and embarrassed, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And to be totally honest, like I carried that for a while. Which really played a heavy role on my heart and on my mind over time. I was hiding it, and I was ashamed and
denying it.
Yeah. Looking back, that's probably, if I could change anything, that would be one of the main things I would change, was tell not as many people as possible but I hid it from my family. Actually, I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody really. My husband, my now husband, knew, and my staff knew, but I hid it from so many people because I was ashamed to say. But if I would have shared, I probably could have gotten some help, and certainly a lot of love and a lot of nurturing from other people. So I missed out on that.
Well, I think that people, once they hear and are familiar with you, and once they hear this podcast, I think you'll get the love that you maybe didn't get back then.
Yeah.
This reminds me a little bit of, just looking at my show notes here, episode 42, a friend of mine, Steve Irado, had the widow maker, 100% blockage, and was coming to school and gotten through it. And three of his coworkers, three of my good friends, said, you need to get to the doctor. And he was just ashamed that I'm 39 years old and this can't be happening to
That
me.
gives me
And
goosebumps. That's how I felt.
yeah, but now he's here and alive, and I'm darn glad he is, and I'm darn glad you are too, because yeah, we let our mind control us in so many good ways, and we also let our mind control us in so many potentially bad ways of I don't need to get help, and I'm going to deny denials.
I thought I could fix it myself. Like, that's what my problem was, is I was like, I can take care of this. I can fix this. Like, I don't need to tell anybody. But it was total denial. I definitely should have asked for help, because I probably wouldn't have spent the amount of years I did paralyzed, actually. I probably could have handled it sooner instead of struggled. I struggled through a lot of time because I was too afraid and ashamed to ask for help. So that's actually one of my overarching messages, is ask for help. You have to ask for help, even if it's just confide in somebody or a few people. I had a few, but I should have been more upfront about it.
You mentioned some of the effects of the stroke, and we talked off air a little bit, and you talked about having to try to get your pants on. Talk about some of that a little bit, about what you were going through again.
Oh gosh, it's amazing to me, actually, when I look back at what I actually did and accomplished and how I got through the days. Again, I feel sad for myself sometimes, thinking if I would have asked for more help, it wouldn't have been such a struggle. But yeah, I mean, we talked about typing on a keyboard. I was one-handed. So basically, the best way I like to describe it to people is stick your left hand in your pocket and walk around and function all day. And I know there are a lot of people that deal with paralysis and certain things, so they understand, they know what I'm talking about. But just put your left hand in your pocket and walk around and function, opening doors, tying shoes, buttoning pants. Like I have leggings on today, but that's just because they're comfortable. But you pretty much wear leggings and slide on shoes. And, it completely changed my life because I had one hand. And so we take for granted a lot of things until we don't have it. A lot of things were a struggle. I mean, driving a car, closing the door, lifting things, carrying groceries, just everyday things. And that mentally, oh gosh, that could wear me down. I mean, unloading groceries from the car, how many times I dropped things on the ground because I thought my left hand, you just think you can use your hand or your arm or whatever. Boom, shattered, broken, just things. And then that's a mental mind fuck, basically. Like, what? So then you get even more frustrated because things aren't going the way you want them to go. So it was a snowball. It was an interesting snowball. So I had to constantly be battling and combating that, actually, figuring out, how am I going to live like this?
One of the things that, when I was going through my anxiety and trying to work through that, I could never take my mind off of, if I would have did this better. And a lot of it you talked about was the shame. I wish I would have been a better athlete, parent, husband, dad, friend during those times, but I couldn't because I didn't ask for help. But now that I'm got the help and I have these coping strategies, and I'm doing really good work now on myself and then trying to help others, I heard from somebody that said, don't let the work you're doing right now, and you're doing sensational work by helping people with their mental health and wellness. I heard somebody say, don't let the work that you're doing now overshadow what that shame and guilt because what you're doing now is so much better than. So you can't change the beginning, but you can change you can rewrite the ending, and that's kind of what we're all about. How is your physical health? What is your physical health like now?
Well, I'm grateful to say that if you saw me now, you wouldn't know that I was ever paralyzed, probably. The left side, I still struggle a little bit. I showed you my left hand has a little bit of motor function skills that we're still working through a bit. But I walk normal. I spend a lot of time doing yoga and some balance movement and just really working on, I've got a couple of devices like an oxygen chamber and a device that I use for meditation and kind of rewiring the subconscious mind to talk to the nerves and talk to the body. I take stem cells and a few things that really help nurture the body. I physically, I'm pretty like back to whole is what I say. Could there be a little bit more motor function in my left fingers? Yes. But I don't even really like worry about that because everything else feels back in alignment. It's taken a few years, obviously. This happened back in 2014. Fast forward 11 years. In general, I'm active. I was in Banff, Canada a few months ago and climbed. I did what's called a Via Ferrata, climbed 10,000 feet on the scaled side of a mountain, which was a bit more challenging than I'd like to admit, to be quite honest. That was a very difficult situation just due to the elevation. I still definitely felt my body had a reaction to that for sure. But overall, I'm very capable of doing anything I want to do.
We're going to pun this next part because your name is Jen, Jen. And I'm going to ask right now, how is Generate Wellness doing? And Generate is Jenerate, a play or a pun on your first name. And then certainly wellness. How is that going for you? You talked about having COVID affected you a little bit.
Yeah. So we had Generate, the brick and mortar business in Wanakee, the sauna studio and wellness center for many years. I opened that in 2014, early 2014. We actually had to close the physical location during 2020, and I shifted gears, and now I just work from home and do some consulting, still working in the infrared sauna business. The brand, I guess, Generate Wellness is still around, but the brand is actually, I've kind of elevated it to Jen Heller Lifestyle now because this process, this transition, it wasn't just about wellness. It's about a lifestyle. And so a few years ago, kind of, all my socials and everything is now Jen Heller Lifestyle because I teach people how to live a lifestyle. And so that's what I had to create actually, is I had to recreate my life and my lifestyle.
Rebrand
the business, so to speak. But I had to rebrand my life, take a step back and put what I call, tools. Some people say tools in the toolbox. I say it's the wellness, in my wellness wheel, the spokes in my wellness wheel, and kind of recreate my life. And so now I spend an awful lot of time helping educate people on how to create a lifestyle. It's doing very well. We've expanded.
You survived.
I survived.
And thrived.
I've survived and I'm thriving.
And you're thriving, yes.
Thriving very much so.
So you just kind of led us into our last part of the episode. This is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, or pencils and jot these things down. Jen sent me 10 suggestions, and after I revisited my email last night, I had 10 down, but then you gave me the permission to pick 5 because that's what we traditionally have on the show. I did go and pick my 5. And these are the 5 suggestions that allowed Jen to survive and thrive a life-changing event, as in a mild stroke. And here's what you shared, and I'm going to toss these in underhand softball style, and I'll give you 2 minutes to hit each one. So the first one, number 1, listen to your gut. It will lead you to your true alignment. Hit that.
I think, so I mentioned this early on, if I would have listened to my gut, the night that I had the stroke, if I would have listened to my gut leading up to the stroke, I probably wouldn't have had it, for one, because I was definitely the body was telling me that something was off. That check engine light was almost screaming at me and I was kind of ignoring it. So that's probably one of my overarching messages, which is why it's number 1. It's that's the first, my go-to. And that's one of my big messages now is, when people call me and ask me about, a sauna or whatever, and we start talking about their health and well-being, one of my first questions is, well, what is your gut telling you? Like, what is your heart telling you? Like, we know the answers. We always pretty much know the answers. It's just, are we listening? And so I think asking the gut what you should do is step one. Step two is having the courage to move into action on that answer. That has been my guiding principle on everything I do, both in life, in business and personal. If you're getting that intuition to do or to not do something or go here or go there, or maybe I shouldn't do this, we should really listen to it because it is kind of the roadmap. How many times have you done something, you're like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Like my gut was telling me, I did it anyways. And now here, and it wasn't the right. If we use that as our roadmap and as our system, it's built, we have it for a reason. It will take you to your true alignment. I do know that.
I do want to go and step back for about 30 seconds because there's probably some listeners that, and it's been popping in there, but I just forget to listen because you get such good content. And so I get stuck on listening to you versus asking the question. So you had the stroke. When did you seek medical attention after that?
Oh yeah, good question. I know we were like, we could have a show all
she
day
went
long.
to work and then she went and swam and ran a couple miles.
I couldn't tell you the amount of days before it was, but it was days after. Like I said, I sought out some resources that I had very close to me first to kind of like rule out some things because I was like, oh, pinched nerve or this or that. But then once we kind of ruled those things out, it was maybe a few weeks before I got in with it was one of my practitioners, my local primary right in Wanakee, and I went and saw her. And interestingly enough, she didn't have very good news. They thought that they didn't pin it as a stroke at first. They actually thought I had Lou Gehrig's disease. And so that was a pretty heavy ball to all of a sudden like, whoa. So, but they were just...
And you're probably thinking, I'll take the stroke instead.
Yeah. I was like, no, thank you. I don't need that. But they were, I don't say guessing because that sounds disrespectful, but they didn't know because I didn't have a couple like benchmark stroke things as well. Like there was other factors. And so I actually bounced around to I was in UW, I went to Aspirus and a couple others, and I ended up in Marshfield with some specialists. It was a few years of medical testing, MRIs, CAT scans, CTs, EMGs, tons and tons of scans and trying to figure out what was happening or what happened. But I didn't go in for like a few weeks.
I'm going to apologize to my listeners. I should have asked that earlier, but we had to get to it and it was in there. So
right.
I hope I got it for you guys. Number 2 then was don't be afraid to be still, silent, and listen. And you can blend this into the sauna stuff, but I think you can do it anywhere.
Yeah. This is, again, it kind of coins with the listening to your gut, but one of the favorite, I love saunas, but one of my favorite reasons why I love the sauna is because it's this safe little space. I always call it like my sanctuary, my hot box. It really allowed me to go inward. So when I go back to the time period when I was losing the weight and assessing my life, I had a lot of changes I needed to make, and I was meditating and I was sitting in that sauna oftentimes listening to asking myself, like, what is going on? I was dealing with some stress and depression at that time from the weight issues, and I was just not comfortable in my body and my skin. So I was asking myself, why? Like, what could I do? So I used that sauna as like my peaceful space, my sanctuary space to really go inward and have a conversation with myself and what I say, my higher power. That became a staple in my life every day. And I still love that. I mean, yesterday I was sitting in the sauna just totally silent for 40 minutes because I don't think we spend enough time being quiet. We're just inundated with technology and distractions and shiny squirrels and things coming at us and traffic and all the things, but how often do we just sit in total silence? It's amazing to me when I ask people if they do, they're like, no, I don't want to hear what's going on in my head. We need to sit in the silence.
I've heard a couple people now in that have come on the show and they talk about the unplug. I need to unplug, turn off my phone, and just kind of do that little reset. And you talked about 30 minutes. I typically am in my sauna for about 20 to 25, and it's an opportunity to just reset a little bit. I like that. Number 3, your greatest challenges are your biggest lessons.
That's a big one. That is a big one. my greatest challenge, obviously the stroke, no bones about a failed marriage, as I call it, or a lesson, the weight issues, those are all challenges, really, really big challenges, but they became my biggest lessons because I had to figure out how to overcome them. And I'm grateful for all of the lessons and the things I learned through the process as well as on the other side of it. But oftentimes I think people get too hung up in, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Instead of asking, why is it happening for me? It took me probably, maybe 2 years. I think I actually just did a show on this too, of the day that I realized sitting in my car after coming out of a acupuncture appointment. I remember the feeling sitting in my car, realizing like I was so stressed out about the stroke, but I realized I could help people with this message. It was a mindset shift that day. Everything changed that day because I realized this was a lesson for me to slow down. It was a lesson for me to get my act together on a few things, to get some more sleep, get some more rest. How could I be helpful to other people?
Get your shit together.
Get my shit together. Yeah. How could I be helping other people if I didn't have my shit together? Right. So it was a lesson. It was a lesson, and it's become my greatest mission.
Number 4, food is your fuel. Be mindful of what you put on and into your body. Go ahead and, you hit that.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to the detox, right? Like this all kind of goes back to ground zero for me is, part of, and we didn't even really talk about this, but we talked about the explosion, whatever, but the detoxification and the weight. In my story, I found out I was toxic with heavy metals, mercury and lead. That also was playing a part it had crossed the blood-brain barrier. And so that was playing a part. So that's how I got into infrared saunas, was I needed to detox the body of the metals. And so I was using the sauna to detox, but while I was in there again, I was thinking to myself, where did these metals come from? How did I get this in my body? Like I didn't consume it, like I wasn't eating it entirely, but it was in some food. The lead was lead-based paint that was in my office, unfortunately, that we didn't know, but we fixed it very quickly, remediated it. But anything you put in your body or on your skin is in your bloodstream in 11 seconds. So whether it be lotions or whatever, but consuming food is our fuel. If we want to feel fantastic, we have to eat fantastic. And so energy drinks, sugar bomb stuff, terrible, but also to your point, different substances and things that people can get their hands on or use. I mean, even coffee and certain things, that's an overstimulant. It's hard on the adrenals and it's not serving us well. So again, going back to core basics, when I needed to heal the body from the stroke, I had to strip it down to what could I eat? What's going to be the most beneficial thing that I can eat? And all my nutrition, my holistic practitioners were like, you need to eat so clean. Like you need like no sugar. You cannot eat any sugar because that's gas on a fire. You have to eat super clean. And so it forced me to like, again, sharpen that wheel. What can I do? And, my husband and I live a sober life. We don't drink. We haven't for years. And so it was just like, how can I sharpen the pencil here and just get really specific on pouring good fuel in? It's like going back to the car analogy. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't put crappy gas in your car and expect it to run, right? You're gonna put the gas it needs.
Man, we might have to have a subscription episode here where you start dropping these one-liners in there with the engine light and reset button.
I think as people can relate to it, when I look at this, I'm like, well, how can I put this into real life terms instead of just blabbering on about, my life experience? It's like, well, when the light comes on, you fix it, right?
All right. And the last one, find the light in the dark days. And if you're struggling, ask someone to help light your candle. Another one-liner.
Yeah, that gives me goosebumps because this kind of goes back to the whole shame and embarrassment and wishing that I would have reached out, wishing that I would have talked to my mom and some family and some people that could have really helped me. Not necessarily take the pain away because it was my struggle, it was my body, but I hid it and I had some really dark days. And I wish that I would have asked other people to help me because when I did, it was like, everybody knows when you light a candle what it does to the room. That's really important for anyone working through any kind of mental health issue or any kind of struggle, whether it's a health issue or work issue or whatever. When you're dealing with something and you don't know how to deal, ask somebody that you really trust and love to help you because they will. They'll take your hand and they will.
Ask somebody who knows how to deal.
Yeah.
What a great episode. I'm so glad you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your story and how you haven't let a mild stroke stop you from living life is inspiring. Your stroke also shows the rest of the world how love and support from your significant other can lift the spirits, and then how you invested some time in your own physical and mental health and wellness can change your life. Despite all that and what has happened to you, you are surviving, and now you are thriving. Call to action. Jen Hella just shared her story and what it's like to live life a better way. She went through a very tough time in her life, a couple of years, and came through to inspire others with her healthy way of living. She also shared her 5 suggestions that helped her get through a stressful time in life, physically and mentally. Here are those in review. Jen's 5 suggestions to thrive. Listen to your gut. It will lead you to your true alignment. Number 2, don't be afraid to be still, silent, and listen. Number 3, your greatest challenges are your biggest lessons. Number 4, food is your fuel. Be mindful of what you put on and into your body. And number 5, find the light in the dark days. And if you're struggling, ask someone to help light your candle. Final thoughts as we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Are there any final thoughts, Jen?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure. And anytime I get a chance to share my story, if it inspires others, that's always, like I said, it's become my greatest mission, is to help other people live an aligned, vibrant life. Also, I mentioned this at the event too. I get up every day, and I'm grateful this stroke didn't take me off this earth. It certainly could have. The statistics aren't in my favor, or weren't in my favor. And so I'm grateful to God every day and ask, just treat my body as a vessel. Like, where would I go? What should I do today to help and inspire others? So I feel so blessed to be able to serve in this capacity and just inspire everybody to take a step back and look at their life and figure out what it is that they can do to remove any kind of toxins or toxic behavior or life or people or things that will allow them to thrive and elevate their life and their health, so that they aren't just surviving, that they're thriving. I mean, that really is, we're here to thrive. We didn't come here for a pile of things. We came here for love, light, and gratitude and experiences and thriving in this life. So
I get the feeling that you and I share a common bond in that we want to help people. And yours is through the sauna and that kind of wellness business, and mine's through, just some talk therapy and things like that. But I think what's going to happen and come out of this is going to be a little bit of a friendship with you and I, and bounce ideas off of one another and see how we can help the rest of the world and do the best we can. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share, or someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.